top stories, St. Kitts and Nevis assumes the chairmanship of the Permanent Council of the OAS. Over 100 candidates nominated to contest Barbados elections, and UK prepares for schools reopening amid soaring COVID infections. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday newscast. Today is Tuesday, 4th January 2022. I'm Carla Berridge. We begin with news on the local scene. St. Kitts and Nevis has assumed the chairmanship of the Permanent Council of the OAS. In a brief virtual inauguration ceremony held on Monday, 3rd January 2022, the permanent representative of the St. Kitts and Nevis to the Organization of American States, OAS, His Excellency Dr. Everson Hull, officially assumed the chairmanship of the OAS Permanent Council until March 31st, 2022. The new chair, in his maiden address, while pledging his commitment to chair the August body for the first quarter of 2022, emphasized that in the pursuit of democracy, which is a major pillar of the OAS, member states must pay keen attention to three causal factors influencing changes in democracy that have been identified by the World Bank: control over corruption, political stability, and voice and accountability. He admonished that these forces can adversely impact the resilience which the OAS seeks to strengthen. St. Kitts and Nevis will serve as the first of 5 successive CARICOM member chairs over the next 15 months. The Permanent Council of the OAS reports directly to the OAS General Assembly. The Permanent Council keeps vigilance over the maintenance of friendly relations among the member states and effectively assists them in the peaceful settlement of their disputes. St. Kitts and Nevis joined the 34-member state Organization of American States on September 16, 1984. Air Canada Vacations will cease flying to St. Kitts with the last northbound scheduled for January 30th, 2022, the company said in a statement, according to the St. Kitts Tourism Authority. This comes as the Canadian federal government has reinstated its advisory against non-essential international travel for Canadians. This decision comes due to the emergence of the Omicron variant. Air Canada will work to cancel flights in order of departure dates. In honor of its 180th anniversary, financial services institution Sagicor set out at the beginning of 2021 to complete 180 random acts of kindness across the Caribbean in a year's time. Across St. Kitts and Nevis, Sagicor team members repainted the shapes and physical distancing markers at the Cotton Thomas Comprehensive School. Cleon Moore, administrative manager, presented a gift card for back-to-school items to the Washington Archibald High School, and the company also assisted the Cicely Brown Integrated School in Nevis with painting. On Mother's Day, mothers were treated to flowers and other treats. During Breast Cancer Awareness Month, recipients benefited from gift certificates for complimentary breast examinations, and many schools also received donations of devices for online learning. Sagicor's president and CEO Robert Trestrail said, quote, 180 years is a significant milestone. For almost 2 centuries we have been operating in the Caribbean, and we wanted to show appreciation to our Caribbean people for their trust and confidence in us over this time. What better way to do so than to give back to the very communities that have helped us prosper, and so it was our honor to be able to serve and give back in this way, end quote. And we're moving now to news on the regional scene. In preparation for Barbadians heading to the polls on January 19th, more than 100 candidates were nominated on Monday. Barbados Today has more.
A total of 108 candidates from several parties and 9 independents will contest the January 19th general election, the outcome of which party leaders say will be crucial to Barbados overcoming the challenges ahead. The final tally was reported by election authorities. Supervisor of Elections Angela Taylor meantime told Barbados Today that Monday's nomination day process went well. Among those filing nomination papers amid COVID-19 restrictions were Prime Minister and leader of the Barbados Labour Party Mia Mottley, Democratic Labour Party leader Verla de Pisa, and leader of the Alliance Party for Progress, Bishop Joseph Atherley. The Barbados Labour Party and the Democratic Labour Party are both fielding a full slate of 30 candidates, while the Alliance Party for Progress has nominated a total of 20 candidates.
Grenada is bracing for a potential blow to its cruise sector as 11 cases of Omicron without travel history were identified over the weekend, and as the CDC investigates 90 cruise ships. For how long remains unclear.
Late last week, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, issued a statement saying some 90 cruise ships are currently under investigation and or observation. As a result, it has warned people not to go on cruises, regardless of their vaccination status, because of onboard outbreaks fueled by the Omicron variant. For the winter cruise season, Grenada is expecting over 200 cruise ship arrivals, and already things, according to officials, had begun to look positive. But now that the country has recorded 11 cases of the Omicron variant over the weekend, all of whom are said to have had no travel history, it is feared that this development could cause further damage to the already fragile tourism industry. GBN reached out to Tourism and Civil Aviation Minister Clarice Modeste Kerwin on how this is likely to impact the local tourism sector. In her response, the minister says they will be meeting on January 6th with the Caribbean Cruise Task Force and the cruise line representatives to discuss developments within the industry. Chrislina John, GBN News.
And we're moving now to news on the international scene. The United Kingdom's government has pledged to rush ventilation units and enough COVID-19 test kits to schools to ensure they can reopen later this week, despite soaring infection rates fueled by the Omicron variant. Despite the surge in COVID-19 infections, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has resisted imposing new restrictions in England, instead looking to a ramped-up booster vaccination program to control the spread of Omicron. Al Jazeera's Rory Chalans reports from London.
Pupils returned to English schools on Tuesday after the Christmas break, and the head teacher at Richard Challoner School in southwest London is worrying about staff absences.
I've had 4 staff email me saying they'll be in isolation at the beginning of term. Now we can manage that, but if that becomes 10 staff or 12 staff, we've got huge problems.
And not for the first time in the pandemic, English schools are implementing last-minute policy directives from the government. All high school students must now wear masks in classrooms.
I, like all the other head teachers around the country, found out about when masks in classrooms for lessons when we read the national newspapers on Sunday morning, which is appalling in my view. How is it that the press know what is going to go on in the classroom before head teachers have even been briefed on that?
But this is the only real tweak to Boris Johnson's Omicron gamble. While Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland all brought in restrictions before Christmas, the Prime Minister chose not to for England. He's sticking with his decision.
The way forward for the country as a whole is to continue with the path that we're on.
The gamble is that vaccine coverage and Omicron's relative mildness will prevent the health service from being overwhelmed. But even Boris Johnson recognises it's not looking good.
The pressure on our NHS, on our hospitals, is going to be considerable in the course of the next couple of weeks and maybe more, because there's no question that Omicron continues to surge through the country.
Elsewhere in Europe, with the new year come new steps. France is going ahead with measures announced last week, a 3-day work-from-home rule for those who can, big public gatherings limited for 3 weeks, and Parliament is debating a change to France's health pass. Only the vaccinated would be allowed in restaurants, cafes and more. The health minister condemned alleged death threats from anti-vaccination activists.
Ne perdons pas de vue.
Let us not lose sight of the fact that the objective of this law is not to restrict individual and collective liberties of French people. The objective of this law is to save lives. It is to protect our hospitals and relieve the workload of our health workers.
Despite opposition from some politicians, the backing of several parties means the lower house will likely pass the bill. Rory Chalans, Al Jazeera.
A deadly strain of bird flu has killed up to 6,000 cranes in northern Israel. It comes as the country sees a surge in the Omicron variant of coronavirus in people. The area has been sealed off over fears that bird flu could cross over into humans. Al Jazeera's Stephanie Decker reports from Jerusalem, Israel.
It's been described as the worst blow to wildlife in Israel's history. This nature reserve in the north was once a birdwatcher's dream. Migratory cranes gather here from colder climates before moving south to Africa. but avian flu has turned it into a graveyard.
The scope of the current outbreak in Israel is massive, and we see that it's not stopping in the wild animals, so it is worrisome. And I must say that with the attention of the Israeli government and other countries to COVID-19, we should not neglect other public health hazards, and we must tackle avian influenza as well.
The cleanup is taking time, the area now off limits to the public for fear of contagion.
At first, about 2 weeks ago, when they discovered the disease, about 50 to 100 dead cranes were identified here. Within a few days, the numbers reached thousands, and today there are about 5,000 to 6,000.
Israel is taking preemptive measures and has culled hundreds of thousands of chickens. The virus hasn't yet been contained. And even though we're told the threat of spreading to humans is low, it remains a possibility that needs to be taken seriously.
We fear of the possibility that the same person will get infected from human influenza and from avian influenza, and there will be genetic reassortment, and we will have a new virus that is both pathogenic and easily spread among humans. That's a theoretical possibility, but we must be very alert in order to prevent it.
At a time when the world is already struggling to contain mutations of COVID-19, with Omicron infections here expected to double and triple over the next few weeks, images like this are only making people more nervous. Stephanie Decker, Al Jazeera, Jerusalem.
And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for joining us. I'm Carla Barrage.